Hello, welcome to Living Arts. I'm your host, Jackie Suarez. Tonight we have a terrific guest. His name is Kahlil Kormantee. He's a writer, educator, counselor, and he's here to talk about some books that he's written for at-risk youth. Kahlil, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm delighted to have you here. I've had just the opportunity to go through your books, and I've become a huge fan.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
So I'd love to just kind of break this down for our audience. But for our audience, why don't you give me a little background on yourself?
Well, I basically write books that I can't find, and that's how it all started. The very first one was back in 2006, and my daughter was 16 then and driving everybody bananas, and I couldn't figure out,
How to talk to her.
how to reach her, and I remember James Baldwin's The Fire Next Time. It was a book that he wrote to his nephew in preparing him for racism in America.
Okay.
The line that he said, you are officially a nigger now, so this is what you need to know. So I remembered that book, and I said, well, maybe I could use the same idea and put a twist on it. This is a fatherly advice kind of book. And I gave it to her for her 16th going crazy birthday. And to our surprise, it worked.
Really?
And she was very touched. She shared it with her friends, and all the girls in the neighborhoods loved it. And her guidance counselor thought it was a book, and it was actually just in the form of a binder.
Okay.
And her guidance counselor said, tell your father, he really needs to think about publishing it. And boom, that's how it all started. So I've been writing for hard-to-reach kids ever since. And it's been really good. It's been really good. I feel fulfilled.
Yeah, well, how did you, well, actually, you are an educator.
Yes.
So you're at the City University of New York.
That's where I advise. Yes.
You advise, okay. So what is that like, or how did you get into that line of work?
Well, the counseling piece just sort of happened organically. I used to teach life skills at Rikers Island. It's as an alternative program. And then I just sort of somehow I would meet principals and directors who would say, you really need to look at counseling and advising students as opposed to teaching. And I just sort of kind of went into it naturally. I just assumed that all the other teachers were doing what I was doing, and it turns out that it wasn't. I was combining the two, because to me, it's not just about read chapter 10. How do you feel? Because if you don't feel good, you're not going to be able to even read chapter 10 or even relate,
Right.
And so the counseling piece just sort of came naturally. And I believe nationally, they wanted to reach the street kids, because now they were going to college, right? Tupac and Biggie now are in your classroom. And now what do? I got,
Right, well, that's one way to look at it.
So then... And that's where I came in, because I have all the street edge stuff that they were looking for, but I also obviously had the credentials.
Okay.
And they picked me up and been there 12 years.
Well, so there was a period of time, you're saying, that this became an issue, and they wanted to have a teacher that could, speak to the students in a way that wasn't just, about teaching the curriculum, but also their overall well-being.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, even now at this point in the education field, people know. And that's why the system is being revamped, or at least we're talking about revamping it, right?
Right.
Because people are realizing that you can't compartmentalize the approaches anymore. It has to be holistic. And the kids are teaching us that every day, even as young as kindergarten. You gotta come with something different than the formula, because it's not working, especially for hard-to-reach kids.
So what did you find, I guess, before you wrote this for your daughter? Because this book really kind of blew me away.
Thank you.
And I think every young lady should read it.
Appreciate
and not
that.
just kids that are at risk or from really poor families or urban areas, because some of it is just common sense stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I liked how you kind of got into, you're almost advising her about the men that are going to be in her life or the men that are going to be approaching her.
Yeah, I mean, females in general need to know how we men kind of process, right? So when it's your daughter, you really want to stop that little princess thing, because that's gonna end up being a car crash down the line. So
True.
so stop the fairy tales, stop the fantasies, because she's gonna find out anyway
Right.
when she's out the door. So you might as well keep it real with her. And so with me, it's always the feather and the bat, right? So the feather is stroke, stroke, love you, right? All that wonderful stuff. But the bat is, here's the reality check. You know, how you present yourself actually does make a statement. It does make a difference. And I know you want to be all you are, and you don't care, and you're going to do what you want to do, and that's a beautiful thing. But there are some potholes that you need to know. And I just wanted to save my daughter, and in the
Some
process
tears and
of
a little bit of heartache.
And yeah. I mean, she's 25 now, and she's doing great. God bless her. You know, she's good. You know.
So what was her reaction to this? I mean, besides it really did change, when you say that it changed her, how so?
It made her become more centered. In fact, it made her realize that she had to find her center. You know, it wasn't a you should do this kind of a punitive lecturing approach. And I think she because that doesn't work with her. That doesn't work with a lot of them. It was just a loving, you know, I really care about you. This is what I see that's going on. I know you're going to do what you want to do, but here's a couple of things you might want to think about. And I don't sugarcoat. And I think she appreciated that. You know, when young people go, they know this? Wow. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I think she appreciated the approach. I don't sugarcoat in my books. I don't talk around stuff. You know, so many authors, writers, whatever, you know, who are into helping kids, we write to each other. We write in a sort of a dissertation kind of formula.
Right.
And because we're experts. But what happens is we end up writing to each other. And we
Right,
forget,
and the average person can't really relate to it.
because you're so cerebral that you're missing me. You're not even seeing me, and you're talking around me. When I write, I'm talking directly to the population that I want to talk to.
Right, your target audience.
That's it.
What would be the most important thing in this book that you feel, if you were to pick one thing, because there were so many things, what would be, I guess, if you had to choose one thing, what was the most important thing you wanted to kind of get across to your daughter?
You're talking about the female?
Before you fly off,
Before you
yes.
fly off, the most important thing? Having a relationship with yourself first. I think that's, if there was one message I would say that was pretty key, that was the one. You have to have a relationship with yourself first, because then you know your value. So by the time the game is being played on you, you already see it, because somebody already schooled you. It's like, oh, yeah, I see what that is.
Right.
You know, so having a relationship with yourself first means that you're not putting the power with him or your other. It's with you, and it's always with you. So you're centered, you're solid, and you know what you want. And more important, you know what you don't want.
Right, so trying to find a way to kind of be happy and whole on your own
On your
first
own.
before you kind of divide your time and your mind and your space with someone
Yeah.
else.
The worst thing a female can do is give her power to a man or other. You know, that's the worst you could do, because you're looking for that person to define who you are, and it's already over when you do that. You know, now that can scare a dude when you know who you are. So what? So what? They're boys and they're men. You know.
Do you find, because a lot of the young ladies in our communities don't have a father figure in their homes, so kind of this book is serving a purpose in that sense as well, because that man is not there to maybe give you this type of advice, that it can be useful in that sense as well.
Well, that's exactly why I did it too, because even if you don't have that male figure, you can open up the book and it's as if he's talking to you.
Right.
You know, and the other thing I learned too is that I became father to so many young ladies after I wrote the book, and we focused so much on the boys. I had no idea that the girls were being left out. I really didn't, because the focus is usually on the boys. What we're gonna do about the boys, and at-risk boys, whatever. The girl bullying situation is another thing that kind of motivated me. I don't know if you remember, there was an incident in the New York City subway system back in maybe 2009, and a bunch of girls bullied this guy, a grown man, you know, and he made the papers, and I was like, wow, what's going on with these girls, you know, and we miss that population. We sort of
Right. Well, I was kind of weirded out by this knockout game that was happening not so long ago.
right.
Because it's dangerous and it's stupid.
It's stupid. Now, I'm not making excuses, but when you come from a place where there is no center, and when the objective of empowerment is to do things like that, you know, wilding out, that's their reality, you know. And it's crazy, but that's their reality. I mean, everybody's walking around with their reality, you know. I have my reality, you have your reality. Everybody's walking around with their reality. You know, I'm dealing with a young lady right now who she got an F from her professor and she slapped him.
Whoa.
And
Well, I mean, that's just like a filter. You don't know how many times I felt like doing that, but,
oh, you can feel that way.
feel like that on a daily basis.
yeah.
But, you can have that thing where, you just learn to control yourself.
Right. But where she comes from, that's how you deal with conflict. Violence.
Were they arguing or she just got the F and...
She just got the F and she
Wasn't-
personalized it and took it to all other places. And the one place that she didn't go, and by the way, I write about accountability. I'm big on accountability. And that's the part where the parents and the youth themselves get a little stuck. And then they get over it, you know. But once you say to her, what's your role in this? It's like, ooh, you mean I'm responsible? Yeah, you're responsible, you know.
Well, I think consequences also play a huge part in that, because there's so many things that, you come to learn once you feel the pain of the loss of a job or a relationship or your freedom,
Right.
things like that, So those things are great teachers as well.
Well,
And it's almost like if you can live through it, the lessons you learn from it are invaluable. But so many people don't make it out of it.
They don't, and you and I as adults, professionals, we know how to behave when we go into a particular setting, like a classroom, studio. You're not going to just get up and slap somebody. She didn't have those skills. That doesn't make it right, but she just didn't have those skills, and it took someone to understand that, well, first of all, she was already broken. So, people lash out because they have nothing else to say. So they just lash out. Right. So
it's another form of communication.
I'm just going to communicate how I feel right now. But we're working with her. She's good. We're working with her. I don't want to give up. You can't give up on her. She's going to graduate. I know she will.
So this is at a high school or at the city university?
This is the college level.
Oh, okay.
This is college.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm surprised that she didn't get expelled.
If he had pressed charges. Now, it takes a couple of things to make that happen now. That means the professor and I have to work together. If it helps if he has an understanding of her reality. It definitely helps if he wasn't hurt too bad. So fortunately for her and for him, it was a slap, and he was kind of shocked. If anything, he was just shocked.
Right.
It
was unpleasant for him.
It was, yeah. Now, what provoked her? Well, all I said was she needs to, get her act together. Yes, but you told her in front of 40 people.
Oh, yeah, that plays a
But
part
what
in
does
it,
that
too.
mean? You called her out. What does that mean? Now we're getting there. Now we're understanding that it's not just about, let's open up your book. Before we open up that book, who is she?
Right.
Where is she from? What's her story? Why does she sleep all the time in the classroom?
Do you think it's really, I guess, in a setting like that with a professor and so many students that it's really his responsibility to kind of get into the psyche of this one student?
It's a fair question because I'm not her counselor. I'm not here to counsel. I don't give a crap what she's going through. I just want her to open up to chapter 10, right?
Right. Or
But-
just, because there's, they have to keep it moving.
And we have to keep it moving.
Right, in order to get the work done.
This is where it gets touchy. Sticky. Because as an advocate, as a student advocate, I'd like to see us hire teachers and professors who think holistically. who come into the classroom not expecting the student to teach them classroom management. They're coming in with the classroom management. In other words, know how to set the tone.
Are your books being used in any of the classes that are offered at CUNY?
Well, we have an alternative program, and they use the volume 1 of Before You Fly Off.
Okay.
That was nice. I mean, that was really, really cool. You know, that was like, I think it was the first big promotion.
Okay.
You know, that was really, really cool.
Did you, writing the second volume, and, you know, I'll definitely want to talk about Youngblood as well, was it intended, besides being a motivational book, something, you know, for at risk youth to read, but also as a learning tool in a classroom setting?
They're all learning tools. In fact, Youngblood, we can talk about that later. I actually show you how to use the book in a classroom setting, you know.
Okay.
But with the second volume, it got a little deeper. It got a little bit more serious, because this is where we started dealing with depression and weight issues and skin color complexes. I mean, you know, we got a little deeper in the second one, and I did that purposely. I didn't want to hit the girls.
So this was more
hard.
of kind of, yeah.
The first part was more about boyfriends and, you know,
Some
relationships.
common sense stuff you wanted to.
Common sense,
yeah.
you know, kind of, and I'm always thinking about the parents too, because they got to deal with this.
Right,
You know?
and you're offering them, I guess, a conversation piece so they can actually open up some of these or start to begin to talk about these things.
I'm so glad you said that, because that's how I write. I write like I'm having a conversation with you. That's exactly what I'm doing. The parent is in on the conversation, and sometimes the parent can't say what they want to say, so I say it for them.
Right.
You know, or sometimes the youth want to say something, so I'll kind of give them
Speaking their voice.
right. You know,
So let's definitely talk about Youngblood.
Youngblood.
That was written, let's see, here, we did Youngblood in 2011.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, I noticed the date of it. It was so close to September 11th. Was that so? I don't know why I always correlate the two, but I always notice when something happened around that time because everything kind of changed in our world.
Yeah, yeah. I
that
mean,
time.
there's no connection. It just happened that way.
Oh, for sure.
Youngblood basically was the answer to a lot of teachers and parents saying, "What about the fellas? You know, you need to do something about the fellas." Youngblood was a little harder for me because males were more visual. You can't ask a kid to read 100 pages of just 100 pages. You know.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's the way we built. We're visual creatures. We need pictures. We need something. We need fonts. We need different images to keep us interested. You know, at first I thought about putting Little Kim in there. You know, and then I'm like, no, that's going to
How
defeat
so?
the purpose.
Like,
you know,
in a narrative?
Just visual. You know,
Oh, putting her picture in there.
Yeah, and then I'm like, well, first
You
I'll
don't
get
want to have to
sued.
split
Number
the
one.
money with Little Kim. Yeah.
Then but then again, who knows? She needs a job right now, so who
Right,
knows?
yeah.
She might like that. But I was trying to come up with different ways.
To make it accessible.
Accessible, appealing to the young gentlemen, because they don't play. And these guys, they don't play. So I had to come strong with them. And so what I decided to do was get a couple of young artists to sketch images that match the chapters, you know. And so, you mind if I
Oh,
show
absolutely.
you?
Go ahead.
Like, for example, I had like the father, the parenting, the young parent kind of.
We're going to point this at
You wanna
this.
point it out? Oh,
We're
okay.
going to point it at this camera right here. That's all.
Okay.
We're going to hold it up so that they can see it.
That's cool. That's cool. This is an 18-year-old kid.
Okay.
His name is Christopher Evans, and he did most of these sketches in the book. There were about 5 or 6 other artists.
Okay.
So throughout the book, you've got these images, these sketches from young men. The oldest one, I would say, was probably 25.
Okay.
So,
So hold on, let me just
I'm sorry.
see that for a second. Actually, I did notice the work when I was coming through it, but there are all of these illustrations in here. And some of these are kind of cool because they're
Yeah,
like they're kind of
yeah.
like just an illustration of what the chapter is about.
Exactly, exactly. So now you got my interest. I see
Mm-hmm.
visuals. It's not an encyclopedia because to a
Yeah.
kid, that's like an encyclopedia to them.
So it was 10 different artists that were doing this.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So depression, you know. So thank you for that. So
No.
and it worked. We actually
People found it, I guess engaging enough that they wanted to continue to read it.
right and then you change the fonts. It's not just one style of writing throughout the entire book. Visuals. You know.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I know so many avid readers, and my brother being one of them. And I don't think, what do you think? I mean, this is the first time I'm hearing that. I guess the male and female brains are so different that their reading of something has to include.
I mean, it's not. I mean, I'm not trying to drop science, really.
No, I mean,
You know,
I'm just curious.
There are men, obviously, who can read an entire book and don't need images. I'm talking about your ordinary, average kid.
Like a young kid, yes.
Young kid in his room, and you tell him.
Make it more like a comic book.
First of all, he's got to read the school books. You
Right.
know? So he's got to do that, and because the goal is to get a grade and eventually graduate high school or college. So he's got to do that. So he's gonna do it, but he's not excited. How do you get him to be excited about reading when he's not? And if you pay attention to black kids, black boys especially, at around second, third grade, they lose interest. They just lose interest. They don't want to read. They don't want to write. They don't want to even go to school, and they stop smiling. And you just see it. And how do you get him back? How do you get him motivated? How do you get him excited? What I do, what works for me is I make him the point of reference. I make it about him. And that's
Right, so
exciting to him.
From their point of view.
Right. I make him the center. In other words, he's not spending 100 pages reading about everybody else but him. This is about him. And that motivates him. So many kids, so many guys have said, wow, man, this is my story, thank you. The other thing I did was I added something called life stories. So I interviewed maybe 15 young males and said to them, confidentially, I'll change your name. What's your story? What do you want people to know out there about you? And I met some interesting cats from a 15-year-old homeless kid who was going to school and making grades, good grades, to a young man who eventually committed suicide, God bless him. But
So these were all people that were kind of in your world already, or that you
already, yeah.
Okay, they were going to the school, or
Either they were going to school or they were willing to get interviewed, from other schools. I also work with youth agencies, by the way. If you've ever heard of Andrew Glover Youth Program, it's an outstanding program. If your audience want to help out, it's an alternative for incarcerating young men and women, and so they provide another avenue. And
what's it called again? I'm sorry.
Andrew Glover.
Andrew Glover.
They're in Alphabet City.
Okay.
The founder is Angel Rodriguez. Dynamite program.
Okay.
There are a lot of other programs if you want to help out, but that's the one I'm mostly affiliated with, and they also use my books to reach their kids. And yeah,
a teaching tool.
teaching tool, motivational tool, whatever helps. Whatever helps.
So you do some motivational speaking. So do you
Oh, yeah.
have?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
are you booked for certain schools, and you kind of go through? You choose one of the books to.
When I'm lucky, when someone says, "Yeah, we feel this," that's always great. Sure.
Yeah, and I think also, I guess what always will work in your favor is that some of the themes in this are kind of timeless.
Thank
So it's
you.
not something that's dated, although it was written a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So that that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you have a blog spot.
It's called the Dreadlocks Tree.
Yes.
There's nothing about dreadlocks. I don't, but it's from my very first book of poems. I do a little poetry. I drop some poems sometimes. I'm looking forward to doing some open mics in the Westchester area. We'll see how that works. but it's from my first poetry book back in whatever,
Okay.
early on, and it's called the Dreadlocks Tree. So that's how I got the title. But the Dreadlocks Tree is really where you want to get to know me a little bit more personally. I'm an amateur photographer, so I always play with the camera and have images. I'm not a professional, but I got my moments. You know, so I got my moments sometimes where I'm good. I go, wow, I did that. I shot that. Wow. I like to travel, so when I travel, I share some of the images.
I did have a chance to take a look at it, and you had some interesting stuff there
Thank
about
you.
Mandela.
Yes, yes.
And you also wrote something that was actually really touching about, I guess, is your mother living with you now? Or?
My mom has dementia,
Okay.
and people are telling me to write about that. I'm considering it. I've got another project I'm working on right now, but I might consider it. But I thought the new normal was for her, but it's really for me too. So we're
Right, it's both a
adjusting.
transition for both of you.
Yeah, yeah.
So what was like the most, I guess one of the most poignant things you want to, if you had to put together a little soundbite regarding Youngblood, what would you say?
Well, again, I write books that I can't find. So it's a book that I could not find about our young men. It's not punitive, nor is it glorifying some of the self-destructive behavior. It helps the young men understand where they are today. And by the way, older men read the book too because it helps them understand what's been going on that led them to where they are.
Right.
It's funny when wives and girlfriends say to me, he doesn't open up. I don't know what to do. He doesn't open up. And I say, well, think about it. He was told to not cry and not show emotion, man up, toughen up. Girl, boys don't cry. So he shut down.
Keep your experiences to yourself.
Keep your experiences to yourself. Don't share. That's girly. Don't share. That's Oprah stuff. Don't share. Lock it up, lock it up, lock it up. He gets older, and what happens? Open up. What's wrong? You're so mysterious. And then they laughed, and they go, I get it. Yep. So there's a lot of nice jewels like that for the readers. For the young men themselves, it's just a way to say, wow, validation. That's me.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show. We've run out of time. I
Thank
really wanted to touch on your something you're working on now. It's called Between the Lines, calling all SGL males. And you're working on that currently. Why don't you give us your website so if people want to find out more information or read excerpts from your current book, they can.
Sure. It's Dreadlocks Tree. I'm looking in the video. Oh, okay.
Wherever the light is.
it's the Dreadlocks Tree. The A is not in dreadlocks because dreadlocks are not dreadful.
Right.
So it's
DRED locks tree.
Tree.
Blogspot.
What is it? Yeah.
Blogspot.com.
There you go. And of course, if you want to reach me directly for guest appearances, or signed copy, I'm at lifejack at AOL.com. LIFEJAK, no C, at AOL.com. Thank you so much for the plug.
Thank you.
I
You heard it all
appreciate
here
that.
first. Thank you so much for coming. This has been really terrific. And to our Living Arts audience, we want to thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this show. Check out these books. They're really good. And if you have someone in your life, a young person, they should definitely read it. So stay tuned for some more great interviews, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.